together a graduate program, and this graduate program would be something where we could teach artists, young artists, how to leverage the small resources that we're usually given in the arts to really have significant impact and agency in addressing some of the huge problems that are in the world today. And we're going to probably start with the platform of addressing environmental problems, because right now we have Newton and Helen Harrison working with us, and they're real pioneers in the environmental art movement, and they'll be giving a keynote speech tonight. And because they're at our disposal, sort of, we're going to use them as a sort of model for this program, and then branch out from there to create a program where all different kinds of systems can be explored, and systems of empowering young artists to address huge problems and really make a change in the world. I mean, I can actually see artists in the government, which is a Joseph Beuys kind of idea, but it's never really been fully explored, and that's something that I would like to be part of making happen. So, with that, I want to really welcome you to Intervene, Interrupt, Rethinking Artist Social Practice. I'm so glad you're all here, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful time. And if you need anything, you can ask me. Thanks.
I'm going to have the panelists come up and get settled while I'm just talking about our format for the day. So we'll move things along. My name is Shelby Graham, and I'm the director and curator at the Mary Porter Cezanne Art Gallery. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the format for today. We'll have the panel, and then after the panel, we're going to have a creative lunch walk with Angela Ellsworth. And the creative lunch is going to take place. You'll have boxes to pick up here. And then the activity is going to be happening in the ravine. So we want you to take the long walk from Kresge to Porter, which takes you around a bridge. And we'll kind of just direct you in that direction. Also, just every afternoon here in the festival, we're having performances take place at Porter College. So, we do have maps, and we do know that everyone will get lost at some point here at UCSC, and we encourage that. We encourage your patience and getting together with everything. So, also, I know there's a vast number of artists here in the audience, and especially I wanted to welcome the artists that are in Interruption of Hierarchies, the exhibition at the Cezanne Gallery. We have Packard Jennings, Joe DeLapp is here, and we're going to show a little clip of Joe DeLapp's YouTube piece, and then Liz Rozoff, Eva Rozoff is here, and her eyebush posters are scattered around the campus. They took down a lot of them off the bus kiosks already, though, sorry. Okay, so now I'm going to welcome Larry Rinder. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, because that was not part of the plan, and he has lots of changes going on, so let's welcome Larry Rinder.
Thank you very much. So I'm Larry Rinder, and this I think is my last day as Dean of the College at the California College of the Arts. And tomorrow I'm the director of the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive. So I'm absent on my last day. It's very bad, but anyway. It's really a pleasure to be here at this conference/festival. And yesterday evening, whatever that was extremely stimulating. I want to thank everyone who was there with your great questions, and it was really a terrific discussion. I learned a lot. And I'm looking forward to hearing what our panelists today have to say and what all of you have to contribute. I'm very interested in the topic of the conversation today, Interruptions of Hierarchies, the Academy and Gallery and Interventionist Practice. These sorts of practices are something that I've been interested in for a very long time, the kinds of practices that blur the boundary between art and life. One of the, I think, the very first museum exhibition that I curated at the Walker Art Center was a Tim Rollins and KOS exhibition. So this sort of thing reaches back into the roots of my professional life as a curator. And it's also timely at this stage of my life, coming out of academia at California College of the Arts, where within the past 2 years we've started a concentration in social practice in the graduate fine art program, one of the first sort of quasi degrees in social practice in the United States, and this has led to a number of other, I'm not sure if it's led directly, but it has preceded a number of other similar programs at Oregon State University. Harold Fletcher's program there, Harold, of course, being a graduate of CCA, Suzanne Lacey's program at Otis. Suzanne, of course, was a terrific influence and presence at CCA for many years in this, doing this type of work. And I'm sure many other programs and similar academic emphases around the country. Of course, this is a wonderful thing in many ways, and we wouldn't have done it if we didn't think it was wonderful. But there is also, the shadow side of when things that have had a life of spontaneity and, anarchic energy become formalized, either through their investiture in the institution of the museum, through capitalization or market forces, or through academicization. When you create a discipline out of something that has previously not been a discipline, what are the consequences of that? And I've lived long enough to have seen this happen in the field of curating. When I became a curator, you couldn't get a degree in curating. To become a curator, the only way you could do it was to curate. And so it was a seat-of-the-pants activity. You reinvented the wheel every time you went out. Every person coming up through the field was essentially starting from scratch. There were no histories of curating, no books about what came before. It was all sort of word of mouth. Now there are books about it. You can get a degree in curating, and I think something is gained and something is lost. So I think that's partly what I hope we'll be discussing here today. I want to particularly thank Allegra Fortunati and Shelby Graham for coming up with a précis for the panel today, which I'm actually going to read because I decided I couldn't phrase it better myself, so I'm just going to read what they wrote. It's brief. During the 1970s and 1980s, many artworks examined the sites within which art was exhibited and the discursive site in which art was viewed, both art critical and art historical. Institutional critique saw museums, commercial galleries, and academe as mediating agencies between art and the public. These institutions determined what was considered art, and if art, how it should be valued. Artwork that interrupted these institutions and their hierarchies of value wanted the public to be aware of the ideological conditions in which art was viewed. Artists focused on the physical and atmospheric aspects of the white cube and its social and ideological environment. In the 1980s, the resurgence of aestheticism and self-expression, with its increasing corporate support, was seen as a backlash to this critique, a move to reassert the neutral arena of art versus the political, the contemplative over the active, and to preserve the privilege, exclusivity, and elitist tendencies of art institutions as arbiters of quality and taste. For some writers, institutional critique failed, leaving many artists to question whether galleries and museums are appropriate locations for their work. Increasingly, artists, as social practitioners or interventionists, are creating projects which occupy sites well outside traditional art sites, including those of work, play, incarceration, and media spaces, particularly radio and the internet. Artistic investigation and research, not so much process, has become the focus of much of the works and draw on other disciplines, particularly those within the social sciences, rather than the aesthetic or art historical. As one author, Mi-Wan Kwan, states, current forms of site-oriented art are seen as a means to strengthen art's capacity to penetrate the socio-political organization of contemporary life with greater impact and meaning, end quote. Greater demands are made on audiences, moving them from the contemplative to the active and toward a greater engagement with the world and the everyday. But where does this leave galleries and the academy? Have their hierarchies changed? Did institutional critique have an impact, or can they change? What must they become in order to accommodate interventionist works, or how are they now relevant? As social practices become more mainstream, what are the roles of these spaces and the professionals, particularly curators and critics, who work within this arena? How have the various roles changed, and what new challenges do curators or educators face in commissioning or presenting works of this type? How can this work be evaluated? What constitutes a successful intervention or interruption, and who determines its value? So I think those are all terrific questions, and I expect some of our panelists will have provocative and compelling things to say. I'm going to introduce the panelists now briefly, and I will introduce them all at once, and then they'll come up in order.